Let's get right to NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Dilanian outside the museum. National law enforcement correspondent Tom Winter, former Seattle Police Chief Carmen Best, and Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State in the Obama administration. Ken, catch us up on what happened there last night.
Well, the latest here, Anna, is that the Attorney General came out here. She said to be with a group of rabbis who were scrubbing the victim's blood off the sidewalk. She recounted that in a very emotional fashion. She didn't say much about the facts of the investigation. She said she couldn't comment on that. I did hear her tell another network that she is will strongly look at this case for a potential death penalty charge. The federal government is taking the lead here, and federal charges are expected to be filed sometime today. In terms of what happened last night, as you said, this young couple was coming out of an event sponsored by the American Jewish Committee when the gunman opened fire. This museum behind me is right across the street from the FBI's Washington field office. So FBI agents responded immediately, tried to render aid. The victims could not be saved. The FBI obviously investigating this as a potential act of terrorism, given that the alleged shooter chanted "Free, Free Palestine." We could all see that on video, suggesting a political motive of some sort. He is talking to authorities. The FBI has said publicly that they were interviewing this man last night, so may have some more information about motive. But again, the Attorney General was not able to talk about that today. The investigation very much ongoing.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Tom, any new details on the suspect?
Yeah, so I think they're looking at a couple different things right now, including a writing that may be his. I don't want to get too deep into the details on that in case it doesn't, in fact, belong to this individual. Elias Rodriguez, age 30, from Chicago, looking into his past political affiliations, what might become of that. And so we're hearing a lot of different information about his past and about his background. I think, though, ultimately what is very clear is the video that we're looking at here, where he says, "Free, free Palestine." There's a red keffiyeh that is on the ground in front of him. Several eyewitnesses told another news outlet that he was trying to put that on. Just up to it, you see the being picked up right there. So that's a bit of a question at this point as far as what else he had planned for when he got inside. Remember, he had dropped the gun prior to this incident. It does raise some security concerns because he's involved in the shooting, allegedly, according to authorities there, drops the gun and then comes in and starts saying what he's saying, what we're seeing here on this video. And then on top of that, this particular video, which was also released on social media, he's continuing to speak here. It's a little bit difficult to see, but if you zoom in on it, in fact, he does continue. Now you're looking at him, in fact, speaking. So that speaks a little bit to Ken's point. Still a little bit unclear based on folks that we've talked with this morning as far as the timeline here. So when does he actually get to Washington, D.C.? Where had he been before that? Is this somebody who had been there for some time? Had he previously gone by this location? Just yesterday morning, our station in Washington, D.C., WRC, actually had a story about security at this exact museum and the fact that in Washington, D.C., D.C. government had started providing money to all sorts of sensitive sites in the D.C. area looking for more security. So this was something that had been reported about, had been talked about. As Ken pointed out in an earlier report, it's just down the street from the FBI's Washington field office. So they investigate crimes in that area, not in the D.C. general area, as well as some locations overseas, not FBI headquarters. It's also close to the headquarters for the police in D.C. So this location was certainly well known, on the radar from a security perspective as far as needing that additional security. And we're seeing.
So was there security there at the museum last night?
So I think that's all part of the investigation at this point. I think they want to figure out what was the security at that time and should there have been more of a presence. Hindsight is always 20/20, and of course we still need to get some more information about that. That's something that D.C. police said that they were looking into last night. We do know today in New York City, the NYPD has put its CRC team, the Critical Response Command, really a group trained after we saw some terrorist incidents overseas where the NYPD decided we need to have a heavy weapons, semi-automatic rifles, officers that are heavily armored, heavily protected out there to have a very very visible presence. So it's not just a uniformed cop, not that there's anything wrong with that, but somebody who's there, who knows what to look for and is trained that if somebody's going to start shooting to end that threat. And so that's something that we're seeing here in New York City today, obviously always a concern after one of these incidents occurs.
Right. So, Carmen, I mean, Tom just tells us that this museum was on the radar, needing security. We know this event at the museum had been planned. And we're also hearing from eyewitnesses that it must have taken some time for security to arrive because this man went from outside where the shooting happened into the museum. Some of these witnesses in the museum didn't know who he was initially. They thought he may have been a bystander after the shots were fired. Coming in was saying that he looked scared. Another witness I heard say that she offered him a glass of water because of thinking he may have been sort of traumatized by what he had just witnessed, until eventually they say he admitted to being the shooter. And then, of course, law enforcement rushed in and took him into custody. This museum's not far from the Capitol. It's surrounded by federal buildings. Carmen, are you surprised no one had even confronted the suspect as he was reportedly pacing outside the museum before the shooting?
Well, certainly he garnered some attention from the pacing. So people were paying attention. What to do about it, I think it becomes a question. Do we call? What do we call and report? There's a person pacing. They're going to ask, do you see a weapon? Are they saying anything? So clearly it's something to pay attention to. And this eerily reminds me of when I was lieutenant in the Seattle Police Department long before I became chief. And we had the Jewish Federation shooting downtown. Lone gunman going into a Jewish facility. He shot 6 people, killing 1, received a life sentence plus 120 years. Very, very similar incidents, even though that was 19 years ago. When you have this heightened awareness of things that are happening, there's just more attention being paid, and we cannot not have good security around these facilities. They are always vulnerable. They have been. And during certain times of political turmoil, they become more of a focus.
Joel, I know you've been in contact with embassy staff. Israel's foreign minister is linking these shootings to pro-Palestinian protests. What are your thoughts about this horrific violence and the current environment related to what's happening in Gaza?
Yeah, Anna, this is what it feels like, and this is what it means to be a Jew in America in 2025. There really are no places where we gather any longer where we don't see security. Can't go to synagogue on Saturday morning on Shabbat without having to go through a metal detector. We can't go to events in the evening to celebrate, like this one last night was celebrating and planning for peace, without fear of someone coming in. Multiple Jewish events that I've gone to over the past year, the locations are not given ahead of time because we don't want others to know where we could be gathering. And so, you look at this in the context and the trajectory, and after speaking with the Israeli friends over the embassy, as I have, and leaders in the community today and overnight, there's this deep sense of fear, of concern that this is real, that the American Jewish community, we've been screaming now for a number of years at the rising level of anti-Semitism in this country. And it's not just words. It's real. I grew up in Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh. We had the Tree of Life massacre there 6.5, 7 years ago. And just last week, anti-Semitic flyers were spread around Squirrel Hill as if nothing had changed. And so for me and for the community and the Israelis who are watching this, we feel targeted. And we see today, again, that this targeting is real and it's true. That
fear you describe, I know you're a father, Joel, of 2 Jewish daughters in D.C. How are you talking with them about this?
3, actually.
3.
Yeah, the oldest one said to me today that it was all over her social feed. She said she's worried because I go, meaning me, I go to events. I took her to a wonderful event celebrating Jewish women on Monday night. I go to these events. She says that could be a target, too. The whole object of terrorism and anti-Semitism is to try to prevent us Jews from being proud of being Jewish. That's not going to work. But what it does do is it harms people. It sets back peace, and it creates this kind of culture of fear. And for my daughters, they see it. Our kids are watching it. And all we can do is say that we will persist and we are strong and we have friends and allies, but we have to work through this right now together and find a better way forward. But the threats are real, and we have to be honest with them about that as well.
You have countless allies who are with you and standing behind you and supporting you and lifting you and your family up and the entire Jewish community. Carmen, we know that law enforcement has this suspect in custody and that they have plans to interview him. What are the key questions that need to be asked?
Yeah, they're going to just try to figure out, what his motivation was, what his mental state is and has been. I think Tom Winter had brought up some very salient points about how he got there, how long he'd been planning, did anyone else know about it? All of these things they want to figure out, where he got the gun, how he got the gun. There's just a lot of questions to be asked and answered when they have the opportunity to interview this person.